confuses that and thinks it's a mixture of Scotch and Irish, which it isn't. It's Scots. That would, Victoria or Elizabeth moved in on Ireland in the north, you know, and they said when they first got off of the ship, the land was so much better than what they had left in Scotland that they prayed. They prayed it on the ground and they prayed. And since then they prayed on the natives. But anyway, when they come over here, it was said that the Dutch people, the Dutch pioneers, the first thing they done when they found their homestead, they built a barn. The English, the first thing they done was build a house. And the Scotch-Irish, the first thing they done was clear out a spot where they could dance and set up a still. So it follows kind of down that line. And that's why this kind of music prevails. Our music in the southern tier of counties in Missouri is much, much different than it is even north of Springfield. There's a very small area that it covers. It's very regional. And another thing about the old mine people is that now after all those years in that settlement, their old fiddlers have died out, and there's about 22 people that drives all the way from Potosi and in the area of Potosi over to Forsyth where I play to dance to my music, and they come to Gainesville in Ozarks County, and they come to Ava. And then when I play in Van Buren once a month in Carter County, and they always meet me there, it's halfway. That's 100 and some miles. And those folks drive that far to play to dance to my spur dance music because they've got fiddlers, all kind of fiddlers, but they don't play spur dances. You know, they just doesn't have the dance with it. And that's the difference in it. Gordon has got us into things here we probably can't do. I haven't played a 6/8 tune.
Well, they won't know the difference. That's one thing I always found, you know, an audience would say, play an old Irish jig, you know. Well, they wouldn't know an old Irish jig, and we didn't know an old Irish jig. So we'd always play 2 or 3 tunes, and that'd just nod how wonderful that was. So I don't ever say that. I always let them.
Another interesting thing, just this past winter, there was a young fellow that's moved and works in Springfield now. He had a friend that was a merchant marine, was a Scottish fellow. It's been all over the world, and he was here visiting his friend. He brought him down in Taney County to a little music party we have, and I played a waltz. Of course, this waltz is not traditional Ozark waltz. It's a waltz I learned in later years. But this Scottish guy said, I hate to run down your music. He said, I used to have to dance that thing every day in school. And it was what he said, it's just note for note. It's the way they play it in Scotland. This was when he was a young fellow, which was probably 30 years ago. So you run into a lot of interesting things like that. And another thing I'll mention before we get to it, I'll play some cross key stuff with a fiddle tuned in a we call it cross key. It's actually tuned in an open chord, where you're kind of tuned in an open chord. And we have done that in this country for them. It's one of the oldest forms of fiddling. It was done for the reason that they could get more volume out of their fiddle, and many times in those days they didn't have a second. There was very few guitars at all. There was some banjos, but they just didn't have a lot of times a second, so they needed to play loud. And this cross key thing was loud and it's simple to play, and it made it easy for the fiddlers to play for a noisy dance. And I've always thought that I was playing that because it come down so it would sound more like the Irish. But I played at a festival in Chicago this last winter in a workshop, and James Kelly, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him or not, but he's one of the top, probably 3 or 4 Irish fiddlers around the United States today. James Kelly was there, and he come over after the workshop, and he said, "Guy," he said, I never heard anything like that. He said, "Would you mind taping some of that and sending it to somebody?" He said, "We don't have those cross keys in Irish music. So there was another thing that I thought, you know, all these years it was long. Let's start with something slow, waltz.
Well, wait, don't get the waltz yet. Let's keep this chronological now.
Oh,
We got a pattern to this now.
What are you gonna do?
Any hornpipe, Soldier's Joy, Liberty, or what about Soldier's Joy?
Well, if we're
What
gonna
about
play,
8th of January then?
if we're gonna play them a real hornpipe, let's play them a real hornpipe, like Fisher's.
Where you play it in?
Yep. But I'll
We haven't
play.
played for a while.
I'll be
Excuse
playing
us while we practice here.
I can play it in D.
Well, of course, the hornpipe was originally a naval water ships and everything, the deal, and of course it was a flute made out of horn, and that was your hornpipe was probably one of the dances they did or something. Well, I've always heard now.
And they added a horn on to the whistles and things to make the sound louder, and they done that on the docks with these particular tunes that the sailors jigged. They was played slower back then. This is more South Missouri style.
Now these names of these tunes are always interesting too. There's some really wild ones. Now that one has nothing to do with fishing. That has to do with the fact there was a songbook written by a man named Fisher with an AR, not an ER. That was published in about 1780, and this was one of the unnamed tunes in it, so they called it after him. So a lot of tunes are named after people, so this is F-I-S-H-A-R originally. Now,
a lot of folks have said that the fiddle tunes was named after the last thing the guy seen before he wrote the tune. Whatever comes to mind.
Oh, no need to play a reel because it sounds the same as a hornpipe. But what about leather britches? That's a reel. You know that one. Here's another one of these. Play it or anything, whatever you want. Originally, those would have had two different speeds to them, but this is what we play, not that much so much for square dances, but that you could play that for a square dance. Now, if you were to go to England right now, or the British, anywhere, Ireland or anywhere, And as for Lord MacDonald's Reel, that's what you'd hear, because that's the original name of that tune. And when it got over here, for some reason, they named it Leather Britches. One story I heard was that when they used to dry their produce, you know, their fruits and everything, that when you took green beans and they used to split them, not all the way up, and then string them on line and hang them over the side of the cabin. When they dry out like that, and they said it looked like wet leather breeches that had dried. You know, that's a theory. They got all sorts of stories for these, so who knows. Well, let's see, what else we got here? I can't read that far down. I got to get it up here. This is just an old program we used to use. I haven't done this in a long time. Oh, I don't know. What about, you want to play a 6/8 jig? What do you play? You want to skip one of those or something?
I haven't tried.
We are now planning this program, is exactly what we're doing, because we didn't have time to do it.
I haven't played the Irish Waltz on it. Maybe we can try to do one.
G?
Huh?
You and G with it? Dance an Irish jig in the Ozarks, contrary to what a lot of people think. I don't think they ever did. Maybe some of the railroad workers that came down, like to Bourbon and on down, there's a few that did, but I don't think it's ever been that prominent. Not in this part of the country. But every fiddler will play one. It's just a part of the repertoire. Don't you think most of them can stumble through that at least? You know? Not you. I don't mean you. But if you ask, even just what we call, say, a plug fiddler, I wouldn't say that to their face, but they'll be able to stumble through something like that. They all know what you're talking about. That's what I mean. And these, like I say, none of this is written down. This has all come from generation to generation to generation. Now let's see what else we got on here. What about Schottische? You play any Schottische? Okay. Which one do you play?
Let's do the Lonnie.
Ellen? That Rochester or no?
Tunes from Holt.
Tunes from Holt, okay.
Got it. Remember the C part of it?
Well, just a minute. Let me. Now, a Schottische. This is a dance that you used to see in this part of the country a lot. Bob saw it years ago, a lot of it, and you occasionally.
Not a lot. We had one German family, Shooters.
Yeah.
Edinburgh.
Oh yeah, their family. Yeah.
And they done it, but not our.
In Springfield they did, because we had such a strong German population here.
In this the short distance.
But the interesting thing about it was a dance that started in Scotland, and then it moved over to Europe, became popular in Europe, and the Germans just went crazy on it. And so Schottische is German for Scottish. And then it moved back again to the British Isles, and then over to this country, and it kept that name for some reason. So that's where that's kind of migrated there, and then back again and down here. Now you get around your German settlements, or you get around over in western Kansas, and you get up in Nebraska and Iowa, and especially if you get up in Minnesota and Wisconsin, you'll find, along with the polka, you'll still find a lot of Schottische because of the strong German families. But most fiddlers, even then, like I was saying, most fiddlers will play a Schottische of some kind. This is tunes from
Once a year, there's a caravan like comes down from up around Des Moines and camps at Chatterock Park in Forsyth, and do all the Branson shows, and we play a dance every 2 weeks just up on the hill at Taney Center. It's community center in Taney County. It's near the junction of the Mill Junction of 76 and 160. But anyway, these folks from Iowa will come. They're all retired, and they will come up to our dance while they're down there, and they do some beautiful stuff. They Schottische almost professionally, and they polka. It's just, I love it when they come down there. We have one night a year, and I never know when it is, when it's going to be. It's usually in August or September. But those folks are really, really good. There's about 16 just kind of stands around with her eyes bugged out. Our people tries once in a while to dance a folklore or Schottish, but it's a very feeble attempt. It's about like me playing that 6/8 time.
You know what a Schottish is? Do any of you know what it is? It's a 1, 2, 3 hop, really, is what it is. But they dance side by side and just a little skip.
And they do a little
but then they do a whole bunch of stuff in with it. It's really pretty to watch.
You used to see some of it on the March Bell show, with people that were really Schottish.
All these tunes we played could be 18th century tunes, all of these. So we'll move just over the line now into the 19th century. And you had the country had become more settled, and you had more permanent settlements, and they were moving west and everything. And you had another type of entertainment that emerged, was the minstrel show. And it brought a whole new type of music, and probably, I'm no musicologist, but from what I've heard, it was a mixture of a lot of African melodies and Scandinavian, everything all mixed together along with what was already here, and you came out with a new type of music that fitted these shows. And the one that we'll play now, and I know he plays it because all fiddlers do, I hope, that is played I've got a sheet music from 1834, and it's exactly the same as you'd hear today. And in the South they call it Alabama gals, but we call it Buffalo gals. And you all will have heard this melody. Now that's how old that tune is.
Well, it was written when they was building the Erie Canal, wasn't it?
Well, that's the title. Well, or they also said it may have referred to the entertainment for the bargemen when they came to Buffalo. Anyway, what do you get on this?
He played an A.
Hey.
And this was a tune that they, when my dad was a young man, they still started that song. We don't play it as a rule anymore, but 80, 90 years ago, they still started it.
guitar players or fiddlers or anything in their families, or they, you didn't either? You probably did. That's not untypical now, yet we can go somewhere else and half the hands will go up, you know. It's just a difference in where people have lived and where traditions have held on, or where the area hasn't what we call mainstreamed. In other words, it's still isolated. In other words, it hasn't gone with completely with television and the rest of the country, you know. Let's see. So then that type of music came along. There's a ton of tunes you'd know, if I could remember all of them, that come from that era. And of course that lasted a long time, this stage show with the minstrel theme and everything. But there was another dance that came in just before the Civil War, into the South especially, and flourished down there, and then the war, and then after the war it just spread all over, and we still have it, and that's the waltz that came from Germany, of course. And but the waltzes have really hung on. A lot of the waltzes are 150 years old, but we still take as just common repertoire for any waltz that you hear and play. What do you want to play over the waves? Or?
Let's play the old Civil War waltz like the Own House.
Okay. Now it goes with them.
Indeed. It's simple even to play that.
That's there. Now let me tell you, there's the attitude. There's the attitude that guitar players have to put up with. It's, you know, he would just as soon, I'll tell you just exactly what purpose we serve. He could set a metronome in this chair and it'd be doing the same thing that I'm doing. I'm helping him keep time, is what I'm doing. And missing a few chords to irritate him. You know. So that's, I just want you to understand that. I don't mention anymore. Coming up on towards the turn of the century, of course, we start getting into Tin Pan Alley, and which is a period of time where you had what I call maybe music halls music, which was, of course, a change of the minstrel music, and evolved into Tin Pan Alley, and so you start having a bunch of a different type of music, and you had a profusion of writers. Missouri really contributed a lot. Scott Joplin, of course, is one of them. And
Stephen Forster earlier on was actually what you would consider a Tin Pan Alley.
But one that they never mentioned, and he wrote, I don't know how many tunes, was a fellow from Joplin named Percy Winrick, and he's buried over in Fair Hill Cemetery in Joplin now. He wrote tunes like Put On Your Old Gray Bonnet, and When She Wore a Tulip, and On Moonlight Bay, and another one. Do you play Dixie Blossoms or not? What's another one? What about any of those?
Whiskers.
Whiskers. Well, let's save that for a minute. Let's go to one of the. An older one would be like Twinkle Twinkle or Santa Claus or.
No.
Excuse us while we argue our program.
The one you mentioned.
Dixie Blossom.
Dixie Blossom.
Yeah, that's a good. That's Winrich. That's Percy
or the old gray bonnet, or any of the, whatever you
Whatever,
want.
go ahead. Your choice. Or just
Wow.
whatever, any of those, any Twinkle Tinkle's okay, any, that's all that same era right in
I haven't played this
Well, hey.
often.
there. Well, no, don't play it, just play whatever you want to play.
title of it is, no, it was written in 1905, it's, the title of it is an Irish or a Scottish town, and it has no relation to them at all.
Can you play it?
Yeah, you know what it is. It's,
Okay, yeah, that's what it is.
Shamus O'Brien, okay. I stand corrected.
That was written by a guy named W.S. Hayes, William Shakespeare Hayes. He wrote hundreds of tunes, but that one and only about one other is all that still are around. And of course, it's an old, it's bound to have taken an Irish melody to put the words to it. It has words to it. In fact, Kim Lansford down at Reed Springs sings a beautiful version of it. She used to be a Silver Dollar citizen. But we always, my Art, Galbraith, I played with, we were at Wolf Trap, and all these Irish musicians from Ireland were there. And we thought, well, we'll play this Irish waltz for them and see how we do on it. And he finished. They said, "What's that?" And we said, "That's Shamus O'Brien. What's that?" And they had him make a tape of it so they could take it home. Well, this Dr. McNeil down at the Folk Center. That was written by this William Shakespeare Hayes in 1867. So that's how these, everybody always thought it was an Irish waltz. Yeah.
I thought it was 1905.
No,
They made a big debut.
Now play Flowers of Edinburgh.
Okay.
Now this is an old, this is really an old, this is martial air is what they call
This
it
is
originally.
a Scottish tune.
Yeah. see. Well, let's just forget the chronology now. We're into the 20th century anyway. That's really an old bagpipe tune. Why don't you go into policeman cross tuning or something?
Okay.
Now these repertoires change all the time, and when I call these tunes to him, it always is amazing. That's why I started collecting this. I started taking this stuff years ago just to learn some of the tunes that these guys played, and I started realizing the repertoire that these people have. And they don't read. You might read a little bit, do you? Or,
Not enough to hurt.
you don't go home and yeah, that's right. So I had old Jude Herndon at Nixa told me one time. He said, any fiddler that's a reader, don't make a good dance fiddler because they're too stilted in their play, you know, or too rigid.
So you can be a reader without playing it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you don't have
that's
to play
true.
what you read.
But anyway, you know, what amazed me is here's a man like this probably plays what 250, 300 tunes, at least, about 5, you think? So when I call these tunes up, you know, then it always amazes me how finally fiddling around for about 2 seconds they come back into your mind.
It's not that your memory gets worse, that the wheel, the tape gets bigger. You get more stuff on there and more stuff on there. It takes longer for it to get around to where that's at. But it's there. I know that Ellen probably has that trouble too. She knows what I'm talking about. That's because our reels are full.
Oh, play a now don't get off on one of these crooked blues I haven't played with you, but they have blues too.
No, you got me in the wrong gear to play a blues.
Okay, all right, play what you get.
This is old Scots Irish wild stuff. This old jumping up and down and stomping. It makes you, when you get about half full of moonshine, it makes you do something. If there's nothing else to do, you hit somebody. And they hit you back.
He's talking Douglas County there.
My brother pulled into a place over here in town one time. He run a Pony Express truck down through Nixa, through Clever, through Jamesville, on to Cassville. But anyway, this place was on strike, which he had nothing against any of it, you know. He actually favored the strikers, but they called for a piece or a part, and Pony Express was supposed to pick it up and take it. So he drove through the strike line, and the guy stopped him. He said, you could get your head thumped doing that. Well, my brother said, down where we come from, he said, we thump each other's heads. But he went on in and got his part.
What are you going to play?
Let's play Pretty Polly Ann, or Lonesome Polly
Cross
Ann.
tune now?
Huh?
You play that cross tune or sing?
Yeah, cross tune. You notice the difference in the sound of the fiddle. You've got a drone. And I play this tune about every Saturday night somewhere for people to dance. They kind of get wild when they. Now that's what we're getting in country mode now. Get a whistle up out of that city now.
says, I've seen it in print, so it must be true. If it's printed, it's always true, you know. That still was a carryover from back in England and everything, in Scotland, of imitating the bagpipe. That was a tuning they used to make it sound like the bagpipe.
If I had time, I could get over in D, I could really make it.
D, there's different cross tuning. D and A are the most common.
If you want to talk about it, I'll tune it down there.
Let's play Drunkard's Hiccups first. That's extremely slow. This is another cross tune now. What other names that has? You got a bunch.
Rye Waltz.
Rye whiskey. And
Rye Waltz.
Rye Waltz.
Rye Waltz.
I'm learning things too.
See, I was playing on two strings practically all the time. One of them's open, which gives it a lot more power. And there's actually not many notes you make with your finger. It's less notes and more power. What you
I heard it was also easier for a lot of the old timers to play some of those tunes because they're just playing on.
Sure.
Well, do you want to cross tune the D, or do you want to go on? Does anybody have any requests? Don't ask for one cross tune. Yes.
Are there younger people that are, taking this up and doing this?
Believe it or not, there is. There's, and I was going to say a while ago when Gordon was talking about this substructure. I went to a couple of years in a row. I was invited up to Michigan, of all places, up in about the center of Michigan. They call it the Wheatland Festival, and it's old folk festival. It's not bluegrass festival. It's not anything but old time banjo, old time fiddle, old time guitar, nothing but acoustics and really old stuff. There was people there from all back of the southeast and all in the east, Pennsylvania and Ohio and all those states. There was 30,000 people there. It blowed my mind. I couldn't imagine 30,000 people that likes this kind of music. And I thought there was just about a dozen, There's a few of us around in every town. I'm acquainted with people that likes old time music in St. Louis and most of the major towns, Springfield. But there's not over 15 or 20 in any one place, is there, Gordon?
No, many.
There's very few. But we've kind of got a network, and seems like it's kind of I've got a plan with people all over the country. But there's just a few in each place. But when they all come to one place, you wind up with they have even bigger festivals back east around Gaelic. tremendous. And the fact that they camped there, they stayed in tents. They didn't have any. This was out in the middle of the country. There was no off-ground motels. There was no. There's not even any good shower facilities, Mary. There was a row of water faucets out in the field.
You want to go ahead and, or well, go ahead. You're not through. I'll let you finish.
No, I just wanted to mention how many of the people, if you get them kind of gathered up from different places, there is, and there is a lot of young people. I also teach a fiddle camp, help teach a fiddle camp up in North Missouri every year. There's 4 of us fiddlers from across the state to give them a cross-section of these students, and we have about 12 or 15 students each year that stay room and board at this place at Bethel, Missouri. And each day they come around to the master fiddlers. We stay in one spot and the kids alternate with us every 30 minutes. And that way they get a cross-section of Missouri traditional fiddling. We've got Pete McCann, you know Pete from up around Columbia. And there's a lady, Vesta Johnson from St. Louis. You know Vesta? Or from out of St. Louis. She was originally from Chillicothe. And then there's always one more fiddler. This time it was a young fellow from around Mexico, Missouri. And then they get this southern stuff from me, this old fiddle stuff. But those kids really learned, and they really, really liked it. They do. It just makes you feel really good. I never thought I would have patience enough to fool with the kids, but it makes you feel really good if they take off on your music and like it and continue with it, you know. And I've also got quite a few private students down in Douglas County that just taking lessons. So it's alive and well. It's not going to die. We're going to keep it alive. We've got, like I say, we've got this little underground all over the country, and you can hear people from California, Washington, or wherever. You can hear them play these. This is what I call this old time, really old time folk stuff. Is mostly Appalachian stuff. It's come through the Appalachians, been filtered and evolved a little as it come, you know, and changed a little by the time it's got to Missouri, and even more when it went on.
Well, but now still, we would have discussed this before, but still another point though, as you've heard, these tunes are all dance tunes. This music was never meant for him to sit here and you all to sit out there and do nothing. This was meant for you all to be dancing while they played. That was the origin of it. Now, the only problem with a lot of the repertoire, a lot of the tunes, is that if square dancing dies out, we're still alive and well right in here, but all over the country there's so many pressures of other things, you know, especially on children in school. Just like you were mentioning, whether your children are going to really remember. Now, the only thing we can hope is that, like Bob said, that they may lose interest for a while because of rock and roll and everything else, but that when they get older, they'll come back to it, you know. Now, you've got different types of fiddling now. Why don't you go ahead and cross to the D? Unless you want to argue. Then you can dispute me when we're through here. You have, this is old time, this is dance fiddle. That's one of your real dance fiddlers. Now, they dance fast and furious. I'll have you play one of the tunes they play for their square dances in Douglas and Ozarks County, in eastern Taney and eastern Friston County. So you've got your square dance fiddlers. Then you've got a younger group, what we call revivalists. And a lot of these are eastern children that have never, are urbanites. In other words, they've never even been in the country. And they've learned most of their repertoire off 78 records, but they're still carrying and playing the old tunes, but they play them differently than the generations before did. But that's still, Bob plays differently than his great-grandfather did, so everything changes. Then you've got these that play down at Branson, show fiddlers, and or violinists, or whatever you want to call them, like Shoji, Talucci, you know. But the thing is, there's excellent fiddlers walking the streets of Branson that can't get a job, because if you play for those shows, they don't want you to play lead. They want you to play backup. Now, that's what you've got to be good at. Back up the singer, or if the lead guy, if the head person plays the fiddle, you've got to try and make him sound good by playing behind him too, you know. And then you've got contest fiddling, which is a big thing now. And the only trouble with the contest fiddlers is when they play, some of these youngsters that play prettiest tunes, they use, like, I think sometimes a 6-foot bowl, they put so much in, they almost lose the identity of the tune. But all they have to do is know about 15 or 20 tunes, and that's all they have to play. And they're making money at it. So those people probably aren't going to carry on the traditional tunes. They're only going to really remember, or maybe the new ones they pick up as they go along, the pop tunes, so to speak. And then you have another style called Texas style, which is influenced a lot by Bob Wills. Bob Wills swings. It's swing music. And I'll give you a word warning. I remember one time at Tahlequah, they used to have a jamboree down there at the Northeast Oklahoma State College. And they turn it over to the fiddlers on the weekend when they were between semesters. And I never heard so much music in my life. Even had the dorms and everything. But I was in a group of these old boys with their cowboy boots on and their Stetsons, you know, just right out of Oklahoma and Texas. And they were all sitting around and they started talking about Bob Wills and all that. And this young college girl was sitting there and she said, "Who's Bob Wills?" My Lord, there was a dead silence. Because down there, it's God, the flag, and Bob Wills, and I never have been sure of the order. That's serious, because he really influenced a lot of music. So there's another style. So you have all these different styles, and then you go get them, like in western Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma, you'll get a mixture where they blended the western with this type of music, and it all gets it. So it's the thing that's interesting to me is the variety of it. If they all played alike, it'd be boring as the dickens, you know. But like, in fact, we were talking about H.K. Selby down in Ozarks County. He said one time, you know, if you don't have your own lick, you're putting yourself down. In other words, you're supposed to play your own particular style and not copy somebody exactly. Are you about through? I'm about to run out of it.
You were talking about the square dance. I had gone on a trip to Portland, Oregon earlier in the summer, and when I was there, the weekend I was there was a square dance festival going on, and there were 25,000 square dancers in Portland. And a friend and I went and saw them, and if you guys haven't truly just sit and watch them, you guys need to, because I never had just stepped
This
back.
was what we call Western square dance. It is real big, where they all have the same little outfits on.
There was
walk
everywhere you
around.
went, there were skirts. But it was still interesting, you know, that's something I never thought was when I was younger.
That's a lot of recreation for people.
It's great.
Tens of thousands of them follow that, especially a lot of people older than we are, you know, senior citizens.
The only thing wrong with it is that people confuse it with real square dance.
I'll tell you,
I want to extend an invitation to each and every one of you, the 16th, 17th, and 18th of September. If you could make it down to the great metropolis of Gainesville, Missouri, in Ozark County, from 9 to 12 every night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, there's probably the best still remaining old-time square dance people. They use this thing every year for like a reunion, and people coming back from all over the United States to Gainesville, all of us at hooting and hollering time. That may be the only time of the year they dance anymore. Some of them's old, some of them young. But this is all just traditional learned dancing that they've done in the hills. And it's freestyle. There's 8 sets going at one time. Each one has its own color within itself, and they're all doing, they might all be doing different figures. They could, 2 of them, be doing the same figure. But from up on the stage where I'm at, it looks like a kaleidoscope. Some's going this way, some's going this way. And it's all romping stop music. I'd like you to see that and compare it to this other.
Where in Gainesville would you find
Square, on the square.
On the middle of the square, right in the middle of the square, there'd be about 10,000 people.
You're gonna have.
You'll have to walk about a half a mile. You can't park any closer than that. The town will be full of cars on Saturday night. There'll be probably 5, 6, 7,000 people there. You can't imagine it. And that's all there is there. There's a few crafts around, but they're mostly closed up. They're there to visit and swear at it. No trouble. I've played it for, all told, probably 10 years, and I've never seen any trouble there at all. So it's safe, it's a family thing, and you'd enjoy it. Let's play a mixture of this is traditional, I guess you would call it. I don't know where you would call it from. Benny Thomason's grandfather was credited with yeah. This is another thing you can do with those drones. You get some kind of weird, lonesome sounds.
Clogging either. You call those jig dancers cloggers, and they don't particularly care for that term. If you ever
There'll
notice
be cloggers dancing.
Yeah, it'll be
with
mixed.
them
It's
among
all
them.
getting mixed now. It's all getting mixed up. But if you ever notice, clogging is more or less choreographed. They usually stand in a line and they all do the same thing. But jig dancing is really
freestyle.
It's a reflection of the early Ozarks. In other words, these people were absolutely independent.
And it's just the way they feel. Sometimes they might jump up and kick high and holler.
They'll have styles, or the old timers did, just like a fiddler's style. They have certain steps they do and everything.
This is a tune that's still played today a lot, Dry and Dusty. And when I first heard it, when I was a very small lad, my uncle played it, and he played it in cross key. They don't do that so much anymore, but this was another thing to use those drones and use the power of it.
can think of. Not a song, a tune, necessarily.
What is a typical tune that you would play for one of those dances?
Square dancers there.
Today, now,
That-
people like to dance. Or have you already played some? Or?
Well, yeah, I played one or two that could be used, that would be used, but
I'll tell you one difference between your western swing square dancing you were talking about, and if you go down there, what you'll see, I've danced at Ava, and maybe my partner is a woman that has to be over 75, has to be. Some of those, you know who I'm talking, I can't remember what her name is. But I mean, about halfway through the thing, I'm starting to die. I mean, I'm gasping for breath, and I'm sweating, and, you know, and I think this thing's never going to end, and I think it's been going on for 30 minutes. And when it finally stopped, I'm standing there sopping wet, very gasping, you know, and everything, and she's ready for the next set. But these people know how to pace themselves at this. It's energetic. I mean, you're not going
they don't only know how to pace themselves, they're tough.
Yeah, that's there's what I was talking about. A reference to my urban background, see, that's what you hear.
There's a world of difference in the way they grew up and the way you grew up.
Why you don't know that?
Well, this will serve 2 or 3 purposes. This is an excellent square dance tune, and I don't know, suppose any of you are old enough to remember when we still had radio fiddlers, like Lottie Robinson and Buster Fellows, right here in Springfield on KWTO. So I learned this tune from Buster Fellows, called Polk County Breakdown, which is not Polk County, Missouri, of course, but then it's a really good square dance.
I used to watch a lot.
You used to watch a lot.
In fact, I wanted to ask you a question. I remember going to a lot of the music parties growing up, and y'all would start at 6, 7 o'clock, and at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning you're still playing. What's the longest you've ever been with someone and just played till?
I played one time in, oddly enough, in Iowa. I just joined this band, this group, and we played all one afternoon, practicing all Saturday afternoon. We had a wedding dance to play that night. We played the wedding dance, went straight from practicing. We started like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We went to this wedding dance and played it. It lasted till midnight, and the people wasn't through, you know, they still wanted to dance. So we went to a private home and played till the sun come up the next morning. That's the longest thing I was ever involved in. And I was the only fiddler. There was several, but that was not quite 40 years ago, but 37 or 8. I was a lot younger then.
Now, see, here's another thing on this discrimination against the guitar players. That reminded me. You'll get 2 or 3 fiddlers, and you'll have 1 second standing there, you know. And so they'll get a set going, and so maybe the one fiddler will get kind of tired, so he backs off, and the other one takes over. Now, you're all by yourself, banging away as they go along. Then they may switch back and forth a couple of times, you know, until the square dancers finally get worn out, which I don't think they usually do. So they've traded off and rested while you're still standing there all by yourself.
Well, Bob, any one particular square that was called, how long do some of them last? Like that fast you were playing in there, jigging the whole time?
In the older days, when now you got to understand, two of the wives of the band was sitting one night at the dance, and they said, you know, they looked around and said, if it wasn't for the senior citizens, we wouldn't have any square dancers. And the other said, well, if it wasn't for senior citizens, we wouldn't have any band either. But back when we was all younger, it wasn't uncommon to go 15 minutes, 12, 15 minutes. But nowadays, I cut them off at the most, usually 10 minutes, and I try to cut them down about 7 now. And I was going to tell you, in Gainesville, see, there's 8 sets going. They've got room for 8 sets on these platforms. And that would be 64 people dancing at the same night. So you've got all that many more, and maybe twice that many more, stand over here wanting to dance, and it's cold, pretty cool, you know, in that time of the year. It's September. So you cut this dance pretty short, and as these other sets are already made up, they're already got them together. And boy, when this one set gets off one side of the floor, the other set bounces on, and you fire up again. I usually cut those sets to about 5 minutes, and I play them from 9 to 12. Now, sometimes it'll slow down a little later in the last hour or something, and the young kids will want to play. You know, they'll want a different tune or something different than square dance. We might get the rest a little bit, but Saturday night it's usually from 9 to 12, just as fast as they can step on, and there's usually 2 or 3 replacements for all those people.
Yeah, I timed them on my tapes, Bob and then a couple others, and it averages out about 5 to 8 minutes. I thought it was 30 minutes sometimes, you know, and that's why I did it. I was curious to know just how long did they last. Occasionally, one time you went 10, I think, something.
Average, I try to
7.
play 140 beats a minute. That's about the ideal beat for our square dancers. The ideal beat for most square dancers in most parts of the country is like 110 or 120. 140 beats a minute is picking them up and setting them down.
Yeah, there it is. Well, could you play us one more? Did anybody have any suggestions or any requests?
Let me say one thing before we quit. I'll never live it down if I don't say something. The guitar player is actually the unsung hero of the whole thing. Because they don't get any recognition hardly at all. And they've got this big old heavy instrument they lug around, and they usually have to drive the fiddler because the fiddler's either drunk or don't know enough to drive, and kind of take care of him. And then they got to reach their hand way out here and clamp these big old hard strings and beat 140 beats a minute all night. Besides all that, they have to put up with the fiddler's comments. So they're really the unsung hero of the whole bunch, and you couldn't do without them.
I suffered a case of tendonitis, and I've always said it's because I'm seconding him.
He threatened to charge me to make me pay for the doctor.
Well, what do you want?
Well, you
Play something. Go ahead and play
Well, let's just play one little fast
play
part
what you like.
of square dance tune. This is an old square dance tune here in this part of the country called Wolves of Howling. I've never heard it in any other parts of the country. But get with it now, just for we won't stay long.
30 seconds was that, you know, that he was playing for 10 minutes.